Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for watching the professor. Today, I'm going to give you an update on the Eddy Alexandre case. Today is August 3rd, 2022. Certainly, there was a status conference on the matter of Eddy Alexandre, United States versus Eddy Alexandre. There are a number of things we're going to talk about today, but I'm going to try to make this video as short as possible. First of all, I wasn't at the court hearing. I wasn't in the courthouse, but I did get the footage of people who came out to support the election. There were many people there. Actually, you could see the video as I'm speaking. You could see the video here where people are online, in line, waiting to get into the courthouse. People were in front of the courthouse in support of Eddy Alexandre. And of course, there's a video of Eddy Alexandre and his security detail getting out of the car, coming to court. So Eddy Alexandre is indeed being treated as a superstar. Now, a couple of things we got to talk about. And I want to explain to people so you guys understand how the system works. I have seen a number of news report on what happened today. And let me explain that the criminal process, the federal criminal process, is very stable. It moves the same way in every single case. There's nothing different. What's happening right now for probably the next year or so, the next 6-7 months, there are going to be different status conference because from now until trial date, until there's a jury trial, if there's going to be a jury trial, there are a number of issues that are going to arise. And whenever those issues arise, either the lawyer for Eddy Alexandre or the government will then write a letter to the judge explaining what the issue or issues are. And of course, there would always be some kind of status conference to find out what the issues are. But with respect to whether or not the government has evidence and whether or not they're going to present the evidence during the status conference, it's not going to happen. That's not the way it works. The system doesn't work that way. When there is a trial, okay, there is a firm date for a trial, the government by law has certain time frame by which to give to the attorney for Eddy Alexandre all the documents, all the evidence they intend to use at trial. So, but they're not going to pinpoint a specific evidence. They're going to say, here's 20 boxes of document or 10 boxes of document. Go hard at it, have fun. We're going to use any of those, okay? They're going to present maybe a list of witnesses that are going to testify. So, but that happens probably a month or two, maybe a little bit more before trial. So let's not talk about the government coming to court and showing any evidence because it's not going to happen. And I've said this before, and I'm telling you again, before it goes to trial, that's when his attorney would get everything. Now, what happened today in court, okay? Today there was a status conference, and there were a number of issues that were, put on the table. One, Eddy Alexandre's lawyer, Bove, is not being paid by Eddy Alexandre himself because all Eddy Alexandre's assets, have been restrained. His asset has been taken over by the receiver. He doesn't have any money that he can use to pay his lawyer. However, his lawyer wrote a letter to the judge, which I have a copy of the letter, a letter to the judge explaining that there could be a potential conflict of interest and that Mr. Alexandre is willing to waive that conflict so that his attorney can continue to represent him and his attorney can continue to get paid. Now, according to the letter that Mr. Bove wrote, Eddy Alexandre's attorney fees, which could be very substantial, I'd be very surprised if the fees are not, under hundreds of thousands of dollars, because those cases are expensive to defend. And I wouldn't be surprised if you were charging $250,000 or some kind of money like that to defend this case. However, he would have let the judge and he said, hey, I'm being paid by members of Eddy Alexandre's family, his friend, and people who actually investors of MNEFX. And this is where the potential conflict of interest could exist, because any of these people who are now paying Eddy Alexandre's fee could potentially be part of that case if they were ever to get arrested. Even though I think that's very, very de minimis, that's not something that could happen. But Eddy Alexandre would have to waive would have to agree that he's waiving the conflict of interest, because every single defendant is entitled to attorney representation free of conflict. In other words, the only person that the attorney should care about is his client, nobody else, okay? So you can have two masters. You can't serve two masters. That's what the rule says, and that's what the law is. And Eddy Alexandre's lawyer was right for letting the judge know that. But here's what I'm saying. No one come to me and asked me. They should have come to me and asked me. And I'm going to tell you guys what should have happened. And I didn't want to say this before, but frankly, really, it's really none of my business, but here's my advice, and it's not too late. Instead of having Eddy Alexandre's family member and investors of MNESX pay Eddy Alexandre's legal fee, what the Haitian community should have done, obviously, the people who support Eddy Alexandre, and they are very, very numerous. 11,000 people signed a petition. So all of those people support him. They should have set what we call a legal defense fund. They could have called it the Eminix Legal Defense Fund or Eddy Alexandre Legal Defense Fund. And people who want to donate money to that legal defense fund, they would have been able to do that. Of course, Eddy Alexandre doesn't have any money, so he wouldn't necessarily have access to that money, otherwise the receiver might attach it. But the group who set up the legal defense fund could have hired or actually appointed someone as a treasurer to manage the legal defense funds. If I wanted to give money to the defense fund, I could just go online, use my credit card and donate $50, $60, whatever. That's what should have been done. So the idea of having Eddy's brother or someone from MNEFX, sending a check to Eddy's attorney, that was the one way to do it. That was the very one way to do it. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to have a legal defense fund. And of course, it's not too late. Well, not Alexandre himself, but his supporters can certainly put together a legal defense fund that they can manage, and then they could use that money to pay the lawyer. There are two reasons why. Number one, everyone who's making donation to the legal defense fund is just making a donation which the money could use for anything that has to do with defending Eddy. And paying the lawyer is part of it. So there's a difference when you write a check directly to Eddy's attorney saying, hey, here's what I'm giving you for his fee, as opposed to giving the money to a legal defense fund. Because when you do that, Eddy can use the money for traveling. He could use the money, of course, associated with the case. He could use the money to hire an investigator. He could use the money to hire a paralegal. He could use the money to pay his lawyer. He could do all of that with it because it's, it's just this big umbrella. So I'm not sure what the people around Eddy was thinking about, but certainly Eddy doesn't have very good advisors, or at least people who know what they're doing. So I feel sorry for him and the people who are working with him. And I always tell people, don't do something you don't know how to do. Always look for great counsel in order to achieve what you want. So this is one of the things that happened in court today. The other thing that happened is that the government are still conducting the investigation. The judge set up a control date, I believe it was March 23rd, 2023, for a trial. But I can almost guarantee you that the trial will not occur on March 23rd. It's probably going to be sometime during the summer of 2023, which I've said before. But the government would have enough time to complete its investigations and share information with Eddy's attorney when that time comes. Meanwhile, certainly the receiver's case will keep going. The receiver will keep looking for MNEFX assets, locate those assets, and take over those assets. So that case will continue on its own quietly, and the government investigation of Emily FX and Eddy Alexandre will also continue. So if you follow my channel, you would know that whenever something happened in the case, you would know about it. If you haven't heard it from me, it hasn't happened. Because people tend to inject different things because they don't understand really what's happening. So they just, I've read different media report saying that the government didn't come up with any evidence, and the judge was trying to get Eddy Alexandre to change his lawyer. All of that are total nonsense. None of that happened. That's not the way it works. That's not the way it happens. So Eddy Alexandre gets to keep his lawyer. As long as he can pay his lawyer, he will be fine. So thank you for watching The Professor. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Stay subscribed, invite your friends and family, and anyone you know who have invested in MNEFX, tell them to watch The Professor. And until then, keep yourself, stay safe.